Good morning and welcome to another beginning keyboard class. Now we're at a point right here where for some of you it's like no problem, and for other people it's like oh no. So for those who are not having any issues, please bear with me, and for those others I want to make sure that you get this, because from here, we're just expanding, and you're going to need to know where we're at and what we're doing. So I'm going to just go back a couple of pages to page 100 and do a little review and make sure that we're getting this, because as we move forward with today's lesson, we're dealing with a lot of numbers, for example, and so it's self-explanatory when you understand it, but if you don't, it could be a little confusing, and so I'm going to try to make it as easy and as understandable as I can. So we're going to go a couple of pages back to page 100, and what we're dealing with to begin with. Before we do that, just a review on half steps and whole steps. As you recall, a half step is, it doesn't matter if it's a white key going to a black key or a white key going to the white key. It's a half a step is any key to the very next key. So if you're here at A, for example, so A to A sharp is a half step, A sharp to B is a half step, B to C is a half step. And then a whole step is simply two half steps. So if you were at B, a whole step would be, here's a half step, here's a whole step. So, or C to D is a whole step, because that's what we're dealing with a lot now, is half steps and whole steps, as we're dealing with the major scale. And we're beginning with the C major scale, and that's made up of two tetrachords, as you'll recall, joined by a whole step. Now, a quick review on what a tetrachord is. Number one, 4 notes in alphabetical order. So since we're dealing with the C major, it's going to be C, D, E, F. Okay, that's your 4 consecutive notes. That's one tetrachord, which is a whole step from C to D, a whole step from D to E, and a half step from E to F. So it's whole step, half step. That's a tetrachord. And then for your octave, we're dealing with 2 tetrachords joined by a whole step. So whole step, half step, joined by a whole step, and then whole step, half step. So it would be, it's a whole step, it's a whole step, that's a half step, joined by a whole step, whole step, half step. So whole step, half step, joined by a whole step, half step. And so that will be, whether it's a C major, a D major, a F major, doesn't matter. Though that layout is going to be the same, and it will come up with different sharps and flats for the different key signatures, but the bottom line is that is your plan right there. Once you understand that, then you can figure out any of the other major scales and major octaves. Okay, so Now the other thing is, so we've got the octave here. Now, if you'll remember, if we're dealing with the bass clef, and then you go under, right? Right? So it's that thumb going under. So coming up the other way, it's the same thing. And then you over. So depending on which way you're going, if you're coming from this way, you're going under, but if you're coming from this way, you're going over. So you need to be able to, so that's an easy way to move without having to jump up. You can very fluidly go the entire octave. And so practicing that is really important, because from here on we're going up and down the scale more than we have before. In the early part we were pretty close together, right? Everything was right there, but now we're sliding up and down. So, okay, so we've got that. Now, so on 102, that is the explanation, and we did Joy to the World, okay? And so now on page 104, this is where it starts to get, for some people, a little complicated. And so it pays to get this. And that's why I'm going to spend, I might have skipped over this a little bit last time. I want to make sure that I don't skip over it again. So when we're looking at page 104, we're talking about triads, right? Now, first of all, okay, what we're, you know, you've got, okay, the major scale, okay, the C, now we're dealing with C right now. So the C major scale goes from C to C, right? So that's 8 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Now 7 is really important, as you'll see here coming up. So it's important that you understand from C to C is 1 through 8, the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? Now, if you look at the very top, your 1, which in your left hand is your little finger, that's your, but, okay, we're not talking about finger numbers right here, because as you know, your thumb is your number 1 finger numbering, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the notes. C, in a C major chord, is 1. Whether it's the left hand 1 or the right hand 1, it's still 1. So, as I was saying earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, with 1 being the root, 3rd is in the middle there, and then the 5th. So, 1, 3, 5. That's your C major chord, right? 1, 3, 5. Whether it's the left hand or the right hand. So the counting here again, I want to emphasize the counting because it's so important. Because when we look at the, so that's a triad, right? Root position, which is 1, 3, 5. That's a chord. So root, third, and fifth. But the root they're also going to be talking about as 1, Roman numeral 1 coming up here. So, like I say, there's a lot of numbers. So triads is built on 1, 3, 5. Okay? So if you're looking at here the triads that are built on the C major scale, you've got C, which is C, E, G, right? And then from your second position, number 2, your triad is D, F, A, right? And then from the third position, which is E, you've got E, G, B. So that's a chord. These are all chords. Okay? So you've got 1. So we've done E, G, B. Now F, A, C. So that's the fourth. 1, 2, 3, fourth. So that's the fourth one up the line. F, A, C. And then G, B, D. That's the fifth. Sixth is A, C, E. And then the seventh is B, D, F. And then back to C. So, okay? So each one of those, there's your C major chord, each one is a major chord. Okay? So, we're dealing with triads. So now when we go to page 106, of all of those chords, what they're saying is, in this next part, so we're dealing with Roman numerals now in the terms of the counting. So Roman numeral 1 begins with 1, right? So that's your first triad, your first chord, your first triad. So that's a C, C, E, G, that's a C major chord or a C major triad, right? But if you, and what they're saying is that the first, the fourth, and the fifth, or the 5, 7, are your primary chords of the key of this key signature. Primary chords. So that's 1. So that's F, A, C. That's your 4, and then your 5, 7 is G, B, D, but there's your 7. So this is a G, this is an octave, but your 7th is right there. So now see how awkward that is? So what they're saying down below, when you're moving from one chord to another, your chord progressions are easier. Instead of going from C to F, A, C, and then to G, B, D, 7, see how far you've had to come? We'll rearrange it to where it's a C, F, A, C, F, G, B. See how easy that transition is compared to having to go all the way up? And so basically that's what we're doing. And so they show you how they drop, you know, the 7th, which is the F, down to right here, and so, but that's what we're dealing with. So when you look down below, this is your C major chord, but then this is your F, and it's your 4th, 1st, 4th, and 5/7. But in order to play over here, for example, you'll need to remember, and if you have to come back and look at, wait a minute, is one a C or is it an F, right? So this is where I'm talking about there's all these numbers now, and unless you're used to it, it can be confusing. So we're dealing with C, which is your 1. This is the new progression here, which is the F, and then back to C again, and then your G7. And then so that's really important. So if you can get that, so that's the left hand, so the right hand. So the 1, C, E, G, the 4, F, A, C, the G7, so okay, so it just takes some practice, but I hope that makes it a little bit clearer, because as we move on, this is what we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with not only the chord names, but also the numbering in terms of whether it's a 1st, a 4th, or a 5/7, because this is what we're going to be dealing with a lot. And so when you look at page 107, they give you a formula for the blues. So there are 12 measures in a chorus of the blues. So you've got 4 measures with the 1 chord, and then you have 2 measures with the 4 chord, 2 measures with the 1 chord. So, okay, let's go back. So C, 4 measures with the 1 chord, which is a C chord, 2 measures of the 4 chord, which is the F chord, 2 measures of the 1 chord, which is the C chord, 1 measure of the 5/7, which is the G7, 1 measure of the 4 chord, which is the F chord, and 2 measures of the 1 chord, which is the C chord. So right here, you have on the bottom of page 106, you've got both the C and the Roman numerals, so you can refer back until you get used to it. And, you know, that's part of practicing. You know, that's part of practicing. In fact, one of the things I wanted to do to begin with, before we start, is I wanted to do a little reading. So if we look up here, and I don't know if, so I'll put this down here, so in case we couldn't record this. So anyway, so I like starting from the bass and going up, but also from the treble coming down. And so if you can read it one way and the other way, then your reading has improved. It will improve by practicing that way. So I'm doing this now. If you practice just a few minutes every day, especially before you started practicing, your reading will improve in just a few days. So I encourage you to do that. So, starting here, C, E, G, E, C, C, E, G, E, C, C, E, G, E, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, E, C, C, E, G, E, C, C, E, G, excuse me, E, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, E, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, E, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, E. Now we've gone to a B flat. G, A, G, E, G, A, G, C, F, A, E flat, C, C, E flat, A, F, C, C, F, A, E, C, G, A, G, C, E flat, A, F, C, C, F, A, E, C, C, E, A, F, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, E, C, G, A, G, C, E, G, C, no, excuse me, G, E, C, G, A, G, B flat E, G, E, C, G, A, G, E, G, A, G, D, F, G, F, B, B, F, G, F, D, let me turn that off. Let's go back here to C, E, G, E, B flat, G, A, G, E, G, A, G, D, F, G, F, B, B, F, G, F, D, D, F, G, F, B, G, A, G. So you get the idea. So that's important. So now, as we move towards playing this, we'll look at the bass first. So we've got Roman numeral 1. So that's our C chord. So now you see the dot there, and so if you go back to, I think it's page 90, remember the Lone Star Waltz had the staccato, so that's when you have a dot like that, so it's a kind of a sharp sound, a staccato sound. So you've got second measure is the same. And now it's moderately slow, so you've got 1, rest, 1, rest. Then you've got Roman numeral 4, which we know is the F, F-A-C. And then again, in the next measure, then back to Roman numeral 1, or the C major. And then your 5-7, which is your G7. And then Roman numeral 4, which is your F. Back to C. and then C. Okay, so that's so those are the three chords you're going to be using: C, F, and G7. Okay, see what a nice, easy transition that is? Okay, so with the right hand, you've got EC, so it's G, A, G, so it's now here we're moving from E to B flat, and then E flat C, and then G, A, G, and then E flat C again, and then E, C, so G, A, G, and then E, B flat, G, A, G, E, G, A, G, and then F, D, G, A, G, and then E flat C, G, A, G, and then E, C, to B flat. So, okay. So putting it together, don't worry about the loudness right now or anything like that, but moderately slow. So we've got C chord here, we've got EC here, so then GA. Oh, so the other thing, if you look down below, the eighth notes may be played a bit unevenly, okay? So that's where now we're going to B flat. So F, E flat C, back to C, now here you're going to the G7 FD. Back to F, E flat C, okay? So let's put it all together. Okay? So, that is that. So, okay, I wanted to take a minute. Now, if you remember, the Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course Greatest Hits. So we reviewed here a while back the Love Me Tender, but now we have the Edelweiss, which, now here's where artistic license comes in. Now, this, as you probably know, is from The Sound of Music, Edelweiss, and it was sung, Richard Harrison, I think his name was, but anyway, he did a wonderful job, I thought, but he sang it very slowly, and if I was going to sing it, which I'm not going to do, you know, I would sing it slowly like he did. And so when I play this, I keep that in mind, and so I don't play it moderately fast. If you want to do it that way, feel free. That's artistic license. But for me, I want to play it the way that I would sing it, which is reasonably slow. So, to begin with, just like if you look at Love Me Tender here, you've got G, B to begin with. And if you look up here at Edelweiss, in your bass, you've got G, B, just like that. Only it doesn't start right off with, like in Love Me Tender, it's, but it's still the same notes. It's G, B, and then, you see? So those three notes, both with the left hand and the right hand, are the same. So maybe that'll make it easier since the fingering is the same. This is 5-3, and this is 1. So you've got, remember how we had both thumbs on middle C and we played that way? Well, this way it's both thumbs on D as opposed to middle C. So, okay, so this is in 3/4 time. So you've got, and then in this, excuse me, the second measure, it's C, D, C, and then C, G, A, G, B, G, B, G, B, C, D, C, A, B, C, B, A, G, B. So we're just doing the left hand right now. C, D, C, G, B for 3 counts. And then C, G, A, G, B. And then C, A, D, C, D, B, A, G, B, C, A, or A, C, however you look at it, G, B, B, C, D, and then 2/5 fingering, C, G, and then now this is 2/4 for A, C sharp, right? And then your 4 is right there on A anyway, so A, B, C, B, A, G, B, and then B, C, D, C, A, and GB. Okay? So let's go. Oops. Okay, now with the right hand, 1, 2, 3, you've got, so that's a D, F sharp A, 5, 3, right? And then G, D, and then nothing until you get to the next line, which is E, D, D, F sharp A, G, D, and then D again, D, E, F sharp, G, G, A, D, D, F sharp, E, D, D, G, E, G, A, G. Now that's D, F sharp, 1, 3, D. So F, A, 5, 3 or 3, 5, E, G, D, 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 E, F sharp, G. Okay, so putting it together, now there's a perfect example of those notes have been played together, that's C and D, but it sounds strange, doesn't it? So it's like going back to the second line, first measure, it's, you hear that? It sounds like, wait a minute, I played the wrong note, but you didn't, you know? Okay? So, in this book, as if you've looked at any of the other songs, the way that he sets things up, it's from easy to a little more difficult, a little more difficult. So if you look in the back of the book, you've progressed from easy to more challenging. So, but this is such a popular song, to be able to play it just is a joy. So. Okay. Well, I think that's enough for today. So I hope that's helpful. Just, practice reading every day a little bit, and practice a little bit every day if you can, and you'll see improvement. So thank you for your time, and happy playing.